The notification sound kept pinging. Over and over. Michelle grabbed her phone from the kitchen counter, expecting maybe a few likes on the video she'd posted last night. Her 12-year-old daughter had performed at the school talent show, and Michelle thought it would be nice to share with family and friends. 300,000 views. In 8 hours, she refreshed the page. 400,000. Her hands started shaking. The comments were flooding in faster than she could read them. This child is a genius. How is this even possible? She's going to be famous. Best piano playing I've ever heard from someone so young. Her daughter Amy had played Chopin, one of the difficult ones that even adults struggle with, and she'd played it perfectly. Every note crisp and clear, every emotion pouring through. The kind of performance that makes you stop scrolling and actually watch. But here's the thing that made Michelle's stomach twist as she read comment after comment, calling her daughter a prodigy. Amy had only been playing piano for 16 months. Not since she was 3 years old. Not her whole life. 16 months. By lunchtime, the video had 2 million views. Michelle's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Local news wanted to interview them. A music academy in New York sent an email about a full scholarship. Someone claiming to be a talent agent left 3 voicemails. Her sister called, crying happy tears. Her mother called, already planning Amy's future concert tours. Amy came home from school confused. Kids who normally ignored her were suddenly asking for selfies. Her teacher had shown the video to the whole class. Someone's parent worked at a newspaper and wanted to write a story. Amy looked overwhelmed, excited, and a little scared all at once. That night, Michelle couldn't sleep. She lay in bed scrolling through hundreds of comments. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. How long had Amy been playing? Was she trained by a famous teacher? Did musical talent run in the family? Was this natural genius? Michelle knew the answer would disappoint them. There was no famous teacher, no family history of musical prodigies, no magical gift discovered at age 2. Just a random online course Michelle had found during the pandemic when everyone was stuck at home and looking for new hobbies. The course was called something forgettable. Accelerated piano mastery, or maybe fast track to expert playing. She honestly couldn't remember. What she did remember was the instructor's bold promise. Learn in 1 year what normally takes 10. Most people would laugh at that. Michelle almost did. But it was cheap, they had time, and Amy seemed interested. The method was intense. Not in a scary way, but in a very structured, very specific way. 30-minute sessions twice daily. Special finger exercises that looked like they came from physical therapy. Weird visualization techniques before bed. Practice schedules that broke everything down into tiny, manageable pieces. The instructor talked a lot about muscle memory, brain plasticity, pattern recognition, science stuff that honestly went over Michelle's head but seemed to work. Amy practiced every single day. Morning before school, evening after homework. Not because Michelle forced her, but because the method made progress so visible that Amy actually wanted to continue. Every week she could play something she couldn't play before. Every month brought a noticeable leap forward. It felt almost too good to be true. Around month 6, Michelle started noticing other students in the online course community. Parents posting videos of their kids playing incredibly difficult pieces. 7-year-olds playing like teenagers, teenagers playing like concert professionals. All of them had started recently. All of them using the same method. The comment sections were full of amazement, but also something else. A kind of quiet understanding, like everyone knew something they weren't supposed to talk about. Michelle clicked on a few profiles. Some had deleted their previous videos. Videos from a year or 2 earlier showing the same kids struggling with basic songs. The transformation was dramatic. Too dramatic. She found a private forum linked in one parent's bio. Had to request access. Got approved within an hour. That's where she found them. Hundreds of parents. Maybe thousands. All using similar accelerated learning techniques. Different programs, different instructors, but same basic idea. Use neuroscience and intensive training to compress years of learning into months. They shared tips, celebrated breakthroughs, and mostly they kept quiet about their methods. One parent explained it directly. People don't want to know that prodigies are made, not born. They want the fairy tale. They want to believe some kids are just special. If they knew it was just hard work and good technique, it ruins the magic. Another parent wrote about getting their child on a morning talk show. The host kept asking if musical talent ran in the family, if the child had been playing since they could walk. The parent smiled and gave vague answers. Never lied exactly, but never told the full truth either. They want a story, the parent wrote. We gave them one. Michelle felt strange reading these messages. Proud that Amy's progress was real, that she'd worked hard, but also uncomfortable with the deception. Not lying exactly, but not being fully honest either. Letting people believe something that wasn't quite true. The scholarship offer from the Music Academy arrived by email 2 days after the video went viral. Full tuition, room and board, private lessons with world-class instructors. For a 12-year-old who 16 months ago couldn't play chopsticks, Michelle showed Amy the email. Her daughter's eyes went wide. Mom, this is amazing. Can I go? Let me think about it, sweetie. That night, Michelle went back to the forum. Posted for the first time, my daughter's video went viral. Now we're getting offers from schools and agents. What do I do? The responses came quickly. Some parents said take every opportunity. Your daughter worked hard, she deserves this. Others warned about burnout, pressure, losing childhood to practice and performance. A few shared stories of kids who'd crumbled under expectations, who'd developed anxiety, who'd started to hate the thing they once loved. One message stood out. My son was playing professionally at 13. By 15, he couldn't pick up his instrument without having a panic attack. He's 17 now and hasn't played in 2 years. I wish I'd protected him better. Michelle closed her laptop, went to check on Amy, found her daughter in bed scrolling through comments on the video, smiling at the compliments. So innocent, so unaware of the complicated world she'd just stepped into. The next morning, another email arrived. This one from a documentary crew. They were filming a series about child prodigies, natural talents who were born to perform. They'd seen Amy's video and wanted to feature her story. Michelle stared at the word, natural. She thought about the 600 hours Amy had practiced over 16 months. The finger exercises, the visualization techniques, the carefully structured lessons. Nothing natural about it, all very deliberately engineered. She thought about the forum, the hundreds of families with the same secret, the same uncomfortable truth. Piano phenoms were real. The talent was real. But it wasn't magic. It wasn't fate. It wasn't divine gift. It was science, technique, and hard work packaged as miracle. The question wasn't whether to tell the truth. The question was whether anyone actually wanted to hear it. Michelle picked up her phone, started typing a response to the documentary crew. Her finger hovered over the send button. In the other room, Amy was practicing. The sound of Chopin floating through the house. Beautiful. Perfect. Complicated. Just like everything else about this situation. Michelle clicked on the link buried deep in the forum thread. It was 3 a.m. She'd been reading testimonials for hours. Parents sharing their stories. Kids who went from beginners to advanced in impossibly short time frames. The link led to a video. No fancy production. Just a man in his 50s sitting in what looked like a home office. My name is Dr. Richard Stevens, he said, and I'm going to tell you something the traditional music education system doesn't want you to know. Michelle turned up the volume. Amy was asleep. Her husband was asleep. Just her and this grainy video that apparently held the secret she'd stumbled onto by accident. Dr. Stevens wasn't a piano teacher. He was a neuroscientist who'd worked with Olympic athletes. His job was simple. Figure out how to make the brain learn physical skills faster. How to build muscle memory in weeks instead of years. How to optimize practice so that every minute counted double. We've known for decades that the 10,000-hour rule is incomplete, he explained. It's not about how long you practice. It's about how you practice. The brain doesn't care about time. It cares about repetition, pattern recognition, and specific types of stress that force neural pathways to form quickly. He talked about musicians who practiced wrong for 20 years and barely improved. Then talked about his students who practiced correctly for 2 years and surpassed them. The difference wasn't talent. It was method. The program Michelle had bought for $47 was based on his research. Well, based on research from people like him, the actual course creator was a former concert pianist who discovered these techniques and packaged them for regular people, for parents who wanted to give their kids an edge, for adults who'd always dreamed of playing but thought they were too old. The method had a name in the research world: accelerated skill acquisition. Sports teams used it, military programs used it, language schools used it, but somehow traditional music education had ignored it for decades. Maybe because it threatened the established system. If people knew you could learn piano in 18 months instead of 10 years, what would happen to all those expensive lessons, all those prestigious academies? Michelle kept watching. Dr. Stevens explained the specific techniques. Micro-learning sessions that prevented mental fatigue, specific hand exercises designed by physical therapists that built strength and flexibility faster, visualization practices that allowed the brain to rehearse without touching the instrument, sleep optimization, because that's when the brain actually hardened the lessons into long-term memory. The students who follow this protocol exactly, he said, show improvement rates that seem impossible, because we've been told that mastery takes a lifetime. But that's not science. That's tradition. Michelle paused the video, thought about Amy's progress, the structured 30-minute sessions, the hand exercises that seemed weird at first, the visualization before bed where Amy imagined playing pieces in her mind. It all matched what Dr. Stevens was describing. She scrolled through the forum again, found a thread from a parent whose son was now playing professionally at 15. "We started when he was 9, the parent wrote. He'd never touched a piano before. Now he's touring. People assume he's been playing since he was 3. We don't correct them." Another parent shared their experience with a music competition. "The judges couldn't believe my daughter had only been playing for 2 years. One of them accused us of lying, said it was impossible. We showed them her early videos as proof. They were shocked, then angry, like we'd cheated somehow. That word, cheated. It kept appearing in the forum, parents defensive about accusations that hadn't been made directly, but hung in the air anyway. Was it cheating to use efficient learning methods? Was it dishonest to let people assume natural talent when it was actually optimized practice? Michelle found a private message in her inbox from someone named Patricia, who'd seen her post about the documentary offer. "Be careful," the message read. "I let my daughter do an interview once. They made it seem like she was born special. Now she can't handle the pressure. She thinks if she makes mistakes, she's a fraud. Because everyone believes she's supposed to be perfect," Michelle wrote back. "What would you do differently?" The response came an hour later. "I'd tell the truth, but I'd also know that most people don't want to hear it. They want the fairy tale. You have to decide what matters more, your daughter's opportunities or her mental health. Sometimes you can't have both." The next day, Michelle called the Music Academy, asked specific questions about their program. How many hours of practice did they expect? What was the performance schedule? How did they handle pressure and competitions? The administrator sounded enthusiastic. "Our students are the best of the best. We push them to reach their full potential. Many go on to professional careers. It's intensive, but that's what creates excellence." "What about burnout?" Michelle asked. Brief pause. "Well, truly gifted students don't burn out. They thrive under challenge. That's how you identify real talent." Michelle felt her stomach drop. They assumed Amy was naturally gifted, that the talent was innate. If Amy struggled, they'd think she wasn't really special after all. They'd never consider that maybe their methods were the problem. She started researching the academy, found articles about their success stories, child prodigies who'd gone on to famous careers. But then she dug deeper, found old forum posts from parents who'd pulled their kids out, stories of panic attacks, kids who developed repetitive stress injuries at 13, one teenager who'd attempted to harm themselves because they couldn't handle the expectations. "They treat the kids like machines," one parent wrote. "Like if you just practice hard enough, push far enough, you'll be great." They don't see them as children, just as potential trophies for the school's reputation. Michelle closed her laptop, looked at the scholarship letter still sitting on her desk. Full ride, room and board, world-class instruction. Everything most parents would dream of for their talented child. But Amy wasn't most children, and her talent wasn't what everyone thought it was. That evening, Amy practiced her usual 30 minutes. Michelle watched from the doorway. Her daughter's fingers moved across the keys with confidence, the result of hundreds of perfectly structured practice sessions. Not magic, not divine gift, just good technique and consistency. "Mom," Amy called out, finishing the piece. "Did you decide about the school?" Michelle walked into the room, sat next to her daughter on the piano bench. "Can I ask you something? Do you love playing piano?" Amy thought about it. "Yeah, I like how I can see myself getting better. How something impossible last month is easy now. It feels good. What if it stopped feeling good? What if it became pressure and stress instead of fun?" Amy looked confused. "Why would that happen?" Because sometimes when people think you're special, they expect you to be perfect all the time. And that's a lot of weight for anyone to carry, especially a kid. But I'm not perfect. I make mistakes in practice all the time. I know, sweetie. But the people watching your videos don't see that. They only see the finished performance. They think it comes easy to you. Amy was quiet for a moment. Should I tell them it doesn't? That I practice a lot? Michelle smiled. That's the question I'm trying to figure out. Later that night, Michelle found another video. This one from a young woman, maybe 20 years old, talking about her experience as a former child prodigy. Everyone called me gifted, she said. Said I was born to play. But the truth is, my parents put me through an intensive training program. And it worked. I got really good really fast. But I also developed anxiety so bad I couldn't perform without medication. By 17, I quit music completely. The woman paused, wiping her eyes. I'm not saying the training was wrong. I'm saying the lie was wrong. Letting everyone believe it was natural talent meant that when I struggled, I thought something was broken in me. If I'd known it was just a method, just a technique that anyone could learn, maybe I wouldn't have felt like such a failure when it got hard. Michelle watched the video 3 times. Then she opened her email, started writing a response to the documentary crew. Her hands hovered over the keyboard for a long time. In the other room, Amy was supposed to be sleeping. But Michelle could hear soft piano music through the walls. Her daughter practicing in her mind, visualizing the notes, building those neural pathways even without touching the keys. The method worked. That was undeniable. The question was what to do with that truth, and whether the world was ready to hear it. Michelle said yes to the academy. Not because she thought it was the right choice, but because saying no felt impossible. How do you turn down a full scholarship? How do you explain to your daughter that opportunities other kids dream about might actually be dangerous? Amy started at the academy 3 months after her video went viral. She was 14 now, the youngest student in her program, surrounded by teenagers who'd been playing since they were 5 or 6, kids from wealthy families who'd had private instructors their whole lives. The first week was exciting. Amy called home every night breathless with stories. The practice rooms were amazing. The instructors were incredible. She'd made friends with a girl from California who could play Rachmaninoff. Everything seemed perfect. Week 3, Amy mentioned her hands were sore. It's fine, Mom. Everyone's hands hurt at first. We're just practicing a lot. Week 5, Michelle got a call from the school nurse. Amy had been sent to the health center with severe wrist pain. The nurse recommended she see a specialist. We see this sometimes with new students, she said, casual like it was no big deal. The practice schedule is intense. Some kids need time to adjust. Michelle drove 3 hours to pick Amy up for the doctor's appointment. Her daughter looked tired, thinner than she'd been a month ago, dark circles under her eyes. How much are you practicing? Michelle asked in the car. 4 hours a day, sometimes 5. Everyone does it, Mom, that's normal here. 4 hours. Your old method was 1 hour max, Amy shrugged. That was beginner stuff. This is real training. The doctor diagnosed tendinitis in both wrists, prescribed rest, ice, and physical therapy. She needs to take at least 2 weeks off completely, he said. Then ease back slowly. 15 minutes a day at first. Amy's face went pale. 2 weeks? I have a showcase performance in 10 days. I can't miss 2 weeks. You have to, the doctor said firmly, or you risk permanent damage. Michelle watched her daughter's eyes fill with tears. Not from pain, from fear. Fear of falling behind. Fear of disappointing her instructors. Fear of losing her spot among the talented kids. They went back to the academy to talk to Amy's main instructor, Professor Chen. His office was filled with photos of former students, competition winners, professional musicians, people who'd made it. Tendinitis is common, he said when Michelle explained the situation. Part of the process. The body has to adapt to serious training. The doctor said she needs 2 weeks off. Professor Chen frowned. That seems excessive. Many students push through minor discomfort. That's how you build resilience. It's not minor discomfort. It's an injury. He leaned back in his chair. Mrs. Hayes, Amy is talented. Very talented. But talent only gets you so far. The students who succeed here are the ones who are willing to sacrifice, to push past limitations. If she takes 2 weeks off, she'll fall behind her peers. Is that really what you want for her? Michelle felt anger rising in her chest. What I want is for my daughter to be healthy. Of course. We all want that. but we also want her to reach her potential. Sometimes that requires short-term discomfort for long-term success. Amy was quiet during the drive home. Finally, she spoke. Maybe I could just rest for a few days instead of 2 weeks. I don't want to fall behind. You heard what the doctor said, but Professor Chen isn't a doctor, and he's not your parent. 2 weeks turned into 3. Amy's wrist healed, but something else had changed. She started having trouble sleeping. Would wake up in the middle of the night anxious about all the practice time she was missing. Started watching videos of other young pianists online, comparing herself, spiraling into worry that she wasn't good enough. Michelle called a therapist, found one who specialized in performance anxiety. The therapist asked Amy questions about pressure, expectations, stress. After 3 sessions, she asked to speak with Michelle privately. Your daughter is developing anxiety around her playing, the therapist said. She's tied her self-worth to her performance ability. Every mistake feels like a personal failure. Every day she's not practicing feels like she's losing ground. But she loves piano. She chose this, did she? Or did she choose what the attention and praise made her feel? There's a difference between loving something and needing it for validation. Michelle thought about the viral video. The comments calling Amy a genius. The scholarship offer. The way strangers treated her daughter like she was special. When had it shifted from Amy enjoying piano to Amy needing to be perfect at piano? She found a private Facebook group through the forum. Parents of injured music students. Hundreds of members. Thousands of posts. Stories that made Michelle's stomach turn. One mother wrote about her son who developed such severe tendinitis at 15 that he couldn't write anymore. Not just play piano. Couldn't hold a pencil without pain. He was 20 now, still in physical therapy. Another parent shared photos of their daughter's hands, scars from multiple surgeries, years of pushing through pain at a prestigious conservatory because the instructors said that's what serious musicians do. My son started having panic attacks before performances, someone wrote. The doctor put him on medication. He was 13 years old and taking anxiety medication so he could play piano in front of people. Michelle kept scrolling. The stories were eerily similar. Talented young musicians, intensive training programs, bodies breaking down, mental health crumbling, and parents who'd believed they were helping their kids succeed, only to realize too late they'd pushed them into something damaging. One post hit different. A father writing about his daughter who'd quit music entirely at 16. She was so good, he wrote. Could have gone professional, but she said she never wanted to see a piano again. Said we'd taken something she loved and turned it into a nightmare. She's 22 now. Still won't play. I lost my daughter's trust over something that was supposed to bring joy. The comments were full of similar stories. Kids who'd walked away from music completely, who associated their instruments with trauma and pressure, who'd been told they were gifted but felt like frauds when the reality didn't match the image. Michelle closed her laptop. Walked to Amy's room. Her daughter was sitting on the bed staring at her hands. Not injured anymore, just staring. What are you thinking about? Michelle asked. There's a girl at the academy. Lily, she's 16, plays better than anyone I've ever heard. Today in the hallway I saw her crying. When I asked what was wrong, she said she couldn't remember the last time she played something just because she wanted to. Everything is assignments, evaluations, competitions. She said sometimes she wishes she'd never learned piano at all. Amy looked up at her mother. Is that going to happen to me? Michelle sat down next to her daughter. I don't know, sweetie, but I don't want to find out. That night, Michelle went back to the original forum, the place where this had all started. Posted a message with the title, I think I made a mistake. She wrote about the viral video, the accelerated learning method, the scholarship, the injury, the anxiety, the realization that fast-tracking Amy's skills had created expectations neither of them knew how to handle. My daughter learned to play beautifully in 16 months, she wrote. But nobody told me what would happen after. Nobody warned me that being labeled a prodigy would trap her in a cage of expectations, that other people's beliefs about her talent would become pressure she couldn't escape. The responses came quickly, some parents defensive. You're giving up too easily. Every musician faces challenges. That's part of the journey, but others understood. I wish I'd stopped sooner, one parent wrote. My kid is 19 now and in therapy for perfectionism so severe she can't function. The accelerated method worked too well. We created a young master but forgot to let her be a kid. Another response stood out. The method isn't the problem. The culture around it is. We use these techniques to create prodigies, then throw them into a system designed to exploit them. We give them skills but don't protect them from the consequences of having those skills too young. Michelle looked at the scholarship letter, still pinned to the bulletin board in the kitchen. The opportunity of a lifetime. The dream so many parents had for their children. But watching her daughter struggle to sleep, seeing her anxiety grow, noticing how piano had shifted from joy to obligation, none of that felt like a dream. It felt like a warning. The next morning, Michelle made coffee and sat down with Amy before school. I want to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. If you could go back and never post that video, never go viral, never get the scholarship, just keep playing piano the way we were doing it at home, would you? Amy didn't hesitate. Yes, one word. But it told Michelle everything she needed to know. Michelle didn't just pull Amy out of the academy. She did something that terrified her even more. She decided to tell the truth. It started with a post on her personal blog that maybe 50 people read, mostly family and friends. She titled it simply, "What We Don't Talk About When We Talk About Prodigies." She wrote about the accelerated learning program, the specific techniques, the structured practice sessions, how Amy had gone from complete beginner to advanced pianist in 16 months. She included links to the research about neuroplasticity and optimized skill acquisition, explained the science in plain language that anyone could understand. Then she wrote about what came after. The viral video, the pressure, the injury, the anxiety. The moment she realized that creating a prodigy and protecting a child were sometimes opposite goals. My daughter is talented, she wrote, but not in the way everyone thinks. Her talent is that she worked hard and used good methods. That's it. That's the secret. And I'm sorry we let people believe otherwise. She hit publish at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night. Figured maybe a few people would read it. Maybe it would help some parent out there make a better choice than she had. By morning, the post had been shared 8,000 times. By afternoon, her email inbox was flooded, news outlets requesting interviews, parents thanking her for telling the truth, music teachers angry that she was exposing methods that devalue traditional education. The comment section became a war zone. You're exploiting your child for attention, someone wrote. Thank you for being honest, another person replied. My son has been doing similar training and I thought we were the only ones. This is just good parenting and structured learning. Why is everyone acting like it's a scandal? Because people are selling the lie that talent is magic. This threatens their business model. Michelle's phone rang. A producer from a major news network. They wanted her on their morning show. Wanted to do a full segment about accelerated learning and what it means for child development. Will you want to film Amy? Michelle asked. Of course. She's the story. Then no. I'm not putting my daughter on television to be analyzed like a science experiment. The producer paused. But people want to see her. Want to hear from her directly? She's 14. She doesn't need that pressure. If you want to interview me about the methods and the industry, fine. But Amy is off limits, they agreed. Sort of. The segment aired 2 weeks later. Michelle in the studio, talking about the accelerated learning techniques. The hosts seemed skeptical at first, then genuinely curious. They brought on a child psychologist who explained the risks of early intensive training, then a music educator who defended traditional methods. What Michelle didn't expect was the response from other parents in the accelerated learning community. The forum exploded. Hundreds of messages, some supportive, many angry. You've exposed us all, one parent wrote. Now people will think our kids are frauds. We had an agreement not to talk about the methods publicly, another said. You've broken that trust, but others were relieved. I've been wanting to tell people the truth for years, someone posted. Tired of pretending my daughter was born gifted when really she just followed a good program. The conversation spread beyond the forum. Articles appeared in education magazines. Think pieces about what makes someone a prodigy. YouTube videos analyzing the science of accelerated learning. Some creators calling it revolutionary, others calling it child exploitation. A music journalist named Rebecca Torres wrote a long investigation piece. She'd spent months tracking down families who'd used similar methods. Interviewed neuroscientists, music educators, child psychologists, and dozens of parents. The article was called The Assembly Line Prodigies, How science created a generation of musical phenoms. Torres didn't pull punches. She documented the success stories but also the failures. Kids who'd burned out by 16. Families who'd spent thousands on programs that didn't work. The pressure cooker environment of elite music schools that chewed up young musicians and spit them out. But she also interviewed the success stories. Young adults who'd used accelerated methods, built professional careers, and had healthy relationships with music. The difference, Torres argued, wasn't the method itself. It was everything around it. Family support, realistic expectations, freedom to quit if it stopped being fun, protection from exploitation. The technique works, Torres wrote in her conclusion. That's not the question anymore. The question is what we do with that information. Do we use it to compress childhoods into competitive advantages, or do we use it to democratize access to skills that were previously gatekept by expensive lessons and years of training? Michelle read the article 3 times. Torres had found something Michelle had been struggling to articulate. The method wasn't evil. The system that profited from child pressure was. Then came the backlash. Traditional music schools issued statements. These accelerated techniques prioritize speed over depth. True musicianship takes years of patient study. There are no shortcuts to mastery. But parents weren't buying it. Comment sections filled with people calling out the hypocrisy. You put 8-year-olds through grueling practice schedules and call it dedication. Someone does the same thing more efficiently and you call it exploitation? Maybe you're just mad you're losing customers. A classical pianist with 2 million followers made a video response. He demonstrated playing a difficult piece, then explained all the subtle techniques that take years to develop. You can teach someone to play the notes quickly, he said. But you can't teach artistry on a compressed timeline. These kids sound mechanical. They're performing, not creating. The comments on his video were split, half agreeing, half pointing out that plenty of traditionally trained musicians also sounded mechanical. That maybe the problem was treating music like a competition instead of an art form. Michelle watched all of it unfold from her living room. Amy was back in regular school now, taking piano lessons from a local teacher who let her play whatever she wanted. No pressure, no showcases, just learning for the sake of learning. Do you regret telling people? Amy asked one evening. Michelle thought about it. No, but I regret that it had to become this big thing. I just wanted other parents to know the truth so they could make informed choices. Some people are really mad at you. I know. Do you think you were wrong? About the method? No, the method works. I think I was wrong about what to do after it worked. I should have protected you better from what came with it. Amy nodded, sat quietly for a moment. Can I tell you something? I'm glad it happened. Not the injury or the anxiety part, but learning to play. Even if it was fast and unconventional. I still love music. I just don't love performing for strangers who think I'm supposed to be perfect. That night, Michelle got an email from Dr. Richard Stevens himself, the neuroscientist whose research had started it all. He'd seen her blog post and Torres's article. Thank you for speaking up, he wrote. I've watched my research get twisted into something I never intended. The techniques were meant to help people learn efficiently, not to create child performers for parents' egos or schools' reputations. The science is neutral. It's the application that matters. He included a link to a new paper he was publishing, Ethical Guidelines for Accelerated Skill Acquisition in Minors. It outlined best practices, age-appropriate practice limits, mental health monitoring, the importance of intrinsic motivation versus external pressure, red flags for exploitation. I'm hoping to change the conversation, he wrote. From can we make prodigies to should we, and if so, how do we do it responsibly? Michelle shared the paper in the forum. The response was mixed. Some parents defensive, others grateful for framework and guidelines, a few angry that anyone was trying to regulate how they taught their own children. But slowly, something shifted. More parents started talking openly about their experiences, the good and the bad. Support groups formed for families dealing with burnout and injury. Programs started including mental health resources and practice limits. The documentary crew reached out again. Still wanted to tell Amy's story, but this time with a different angle. Not amazing child prodigy, but the truth about accelerated learning and what it means for the future of education. Michelle asked Amy if she wanted to participate. You don't have to. But if you do, we control the narrative. We tell the whole story. The good parts and the hard parts, Amy thought for a long time. Will it help other kids? Kids going through what I went through? I think it might. Then okay. But only if we can talk about the mistakes too, not just the success. The interview filmed a month later. Amy spoke calmly about her experience. The excitement of learning quickly. The thrill of the viral video. Then the pressure. The injury. The anxiety. The moment she realized being called gifted felt more like a burden than a blessing. I don't think I'm special, she said to the camera. I think I learned a skill using good techniques. That's not the same as being born talented, and I wish more people understood that difference. The documentary hadn't aired yet. Michelle didn't know how people would respond. But sitting in their living room after filming, watching Amy play piano just for fun, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Peace. The truth was out there now. Messy and complicated and imperfect, but out there, and whatever happened next, at least they'd been honest. The documentary aired on a Thursday night. Michelle and Amy watched it together on the couch, both nervous about how they'd be portrayed. The title appeared on screen, Prodigy, The Truth Behind Musical Genius. It was fair. More than fair. They showed Amy's viral video, then cut to her explaining the accelerated learning method, showed footage of her practicing, but also footage of her just being a regular teenager, laughing with friends, doing homework, being normal. The filmmaker interviewed other families too, some who'd had positive experiences with accelerated learning, others who'd watched their kids burn out, music educators on both sides of the debate, psychologists explaining the risks and benefits. By the end, it wasn't trying to convince anyone of anything, just presenting the complicated reality. The final scene was Amy playing piano in their living room. Not a difficult classical piece, just a simple song she'd written herself. The camera stayed on her face. She looked peaceful, happy, not performing for anyone, just playing. People ask me if I'm still a prodigy, Amy said in voiceover. I don't know how to answer that. I learned fast. I worked hard. I got pretty good. But I'm not special. I'm just someone who practiced efficiently. And honestly, that feels better than being called gifted ever did. Michelle's phone started buzzing before the credits finished rolling. Messages from friends and family. Comments pouring in on social media. But this time the response felt different. Less judgment. More understanding. Thank you for making this, one parent wrote. My daughter is in intensive violin training and I've been worried about pushing her too hard. This helped me see I'm not crazy for having concerns. Another message said, I used to think prodigies were born. Now I realize they're built. And that's actually more inspiring. Means anyone can learn anything if they use the right approach. Over the next few weeks, things began to change in small ways. A major music conservatory announced new policies limiting practice hours for students under 16. A popular online music course added mandatory rest days and mental health resources. Parents in the forum started openly discussing the balance between ambition and well-being. But the most unexpected thing happened 3 months after the documentary aired. Michelle got an email from a woman named Christina, who ran a community music program in a low-income neighborhood. She'd watched the documentary and had an idea. For years, quality music education has been for rich kids only, Christina wrote. Private lessons cost hundreds per month. Most families can't afford that. But if these accelerated methods actually work and can be taught efficiently, maybe we could use them to give access to kids who've never had it before. Michelle called her that same day. They talked for 2 hours. About the techniques. About the risks. About how to implement structured learning without creating pressure. About making music accessible without making it stressful. The method isn't the enemy, Christina said. Exploitation is. If we use these techniques ethically, with proper support and age-appropriate expectations, we could teach kids from all backgrounds. Not to create prodigies, just to give them skills and confidence and joy. They piloted a program that summer. 20 kids from Christina's neighborhood, ages 8 to 14. None had touched a piano before. They used modified versions of the accelerated learning techniques, structured practice but kept short and fun, visualization exercises framed as games, hand exercises built into warm-ups, but they also built in protections. No performances unless kids wanted to. No competitions. No pressure to progress at any particular speed. Regular check-ins with a counselor. Parents educated about warning signs of burnout. The goal wasn't to create viral videos or scholarship students. Just to teach kids to play, Amy volunteered as a teaching assistant, worked with the younger students, helped them with finger positioning and basic techniques. Michelle watched her daughter light up in a way she hadn't seen since before the viral video. This wasn't about being special or gifted. It was about sharing something she loved. By the end of summer, all 20 kids could play basic songs. A few had progressed to intermediate pieces, but more importantly, every single one of them said they wanted to continue. They enjoyed it. It was fun. Christina filmed a small showcase, nothing fancy, just the kids playing for their families in the community center. One little boy played a simple melody he'd written himself. Not technically impressive, but full of personality. His mother was crying. "I never thought he'd have opportunities like this," she said. That video got shared too. Not millions of views like Amy's original performance, just a few thousand, but the comments were different. This is what music education should be. Finally using these techniques for good. Making prodigies was never the point. Making music accessible is. Michelle started getting emails from other community programs, schools in rural areas, after-school programs in cities, all wanting to know how to implement ethical accelerated learning. She and Christina created a free guide, best practices, red flags to avoid, ways to measure progress without creating pressure. The original form changed too. Some parents left angry that the secret was out, but new people joined. Teachers looking for better methods. Parents wanting to give their kids skills without sacrificing their mental health. Conversations shifted from how fast can my child progress to how can my child learn sustainably. Amy turned 16, still played piano daily but on her own terms. She joined a casual jazz band that met weekly. No pressure to be the best. Just a group of teenagers making music together and occasionally playing at local coffee shops. She started teaching lessons to younger kids in the neighborhood, using the techniques that had worked for her, but with the wisdom of someone who'd learned the hard way about balance. One evening, a parent approached Michelle after Amy's jazz band played a small gig. "My daughter wants to learn piano. She saw your documentary, but I'm scared. Scared of pushing her too hard. Scared of not pushing her enough." "How do you know the right balance?" Michelle thought about the question, about the viral video and the scholarship and the injury and the anxiety, about Amy now happy and healthy and still playing, about the kids in Christina's program discovering music for the first time. "I don't think there's one right answer," Michelle said, "but I think you start by asking why. Why does your daughter want to learn? If it's because she's curious and thinks it's interesting, that's good. If it's because she wants to be famous or because you want to post videos of her, that's a problem. The method isn't dangerous. It's the motivation behind it that matters." The parent nodded. "And if she wants to quit? Then she quits. Skills are great, but they're not worth sacrificing your kid's well-being or childhood. There's no trophy or scholarship or viral video worth that trade." That night, Michelle went back and watched Amy's original video, the one that had started everything. Her daughter at 12 playing Chopin perfectly. 3 million views. Thousands of comments about natural talent and genetic gifts. She read through the comments now with different eyes. So many people desperate to believe in magic, to believe some people were just born special. Because if talent was innate, you didn't have to feel bad about not developing your own skills. You could blame genetics instead of effort. But the truth was more interesting than the myth. Talent wasn't magic. It was method plus motivation plus support. Anyone could develop impressive skills with the right approach in enough time. That wasn't a disappointing truth. It was an empowering one. Amy walked into the room fresh from practicing. "What are you watching?" "Your old video." Amy made a face. "Ugh, I hate watching that." "Why?" "Because everyone in the comments thinks that's who I am. A prodigy, a genius, some special person. But that's not real. I was just a kid who practiced using good techniques. Does it bother you? That people still think you're naturally gifted?" Amy shrugged. "Used to. Not anymore. Let them believe what they want. I know the truth. And anyone who actually wants to learn can find the same information I used. It's not a secret anymore." She sat down at the piano, started playing something slow and jazzy. Not technically difficult, just beautiful. Michelle recognized the melody, something Amy had written herself. "You know what's funny?" Amy said, still playing. "When I was trying to be a prodigy, music felt like work, like something I had to prove. Now I'm just a regular pianist and it feels like freedom. I can play what I want. Make mistakes. Try weird things. I'm not special anymore, and that's the best thing that ever happened to me. Michelle smiled, thought about all the parents out there still chasing the prodigy dream, still believing their kids needed to be extraordinary, still thinking that being called gifted was the ultimate goal. She hoped they'd find what she'd learned. That ordinary was underrated, that skills learned slowly or quickly didn't matter as much as skills learned sustainably, that the point of education wasn't to create exceptional children. It was to help children discover what made them happy. Piano phenoms were real. The techniques worked. The science was solid. You really could compress years of learning into months with the right approach. But the question was never whether you could do it. The question was whether you should, and if you did, how to do it in a way that protected childhood instead of sacrificing it. Amy finished playing, looked up at her mother. Good? Perfect, Michelle said. And this time she meant it in the best possible way. Not perfect like flawless, perfect like honest, perfect like human, perfect like enough.